What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to CM Aviation. Hope you're on a fantastic day today. And today I have a very exciting model review for you all, possibly one of the coolest ones of the year. We're going to be taking a look here at Delta's 100-year anniversary liveries. So very excited for this. Happy birthday, Delta, once again. One of my projects through this fall is going to be taking a look and celebrating Delta's 100th year, and really excited to do this with all airlines coming up. We'll have American, United, and so forth, but obviously Delta, first one to 100. So here in 2025, we are celebrating. So here we go with the Airbus A321neo and Airbus A350, both from GeminiJets. So we'll have the NG model versions coming up, Panda, and probably even the Phoenix ones. I'm on a quest to get all of them. But nevertheless, I want to start here because I don't know which ones I want to keep and so forth, but I definitely want to, at the very least, take a look at all of them and really celebrate Delta's 100th anniversary. So with that being said, let's go ahead and take a look. So here's the boxes. I'll just do a little spin around. The front's really the big takeaway from these. As you can tell, they have the really neat design. So Delta's big slogan, of course, will never stop climbing. That's kind of their theme for this celebration. So you have that on top left, and then you have, again, A321neo on the left and the A350-900 on the right. So it's a great variety here, and they look super nice. I love the color palette and how they're theming to exactly what's on the livery. So personally, I think it is a really spectacular livery, and I think the best part of it is that they're really celebrating their 100 years, with the, excuse that box damage, by the way, I apologize about that. Really wanted to take a look at the, what was I going to say here? The box distracted me a little bit. They're really reflecting upon their their liveries over time. And, you know, they obviously started with that gray livery, and then they've transitioned to blue over time. And the back of the boxes really talks about, you know, what they're looking to do long term, and it's cool to see that. So, and they even talk about the livery a little bit. So these are quite cool. Thank you so much, GeminiJets, for making these. They're really great and definitely very, very good aircraft. So I don't know which ones I want to keep yet, but I will say that these are definitely very high on the list because of just overall Gemini. I mean, this really proves, you know, if they would have done this 2 years ago, it probably would have been a different discussion. But it's safe to say that their molds are continuing to, they're maximizing what they can do with them. And that was my big, you know, remark for a long time with GeminiJets is, hey, can they make progress and do what they're capable of doing? And that's exactly what we have here. So yes, on the bottom, you have the Airbus A321neo. On the top, you have the Airbus A350-900. So we'll kind of just take a look at them individually and kind of go through them kind of together, because obviously, you know, they're very similar in the livery regard. It's just the aircraft type that's substantially different. But I thought that reviewing these together only made sense, and we're going to have other manufacturers that will be doing as well. So there will be some big differences. I'll definitely touch on those. The big ones, of course, are going to be the mold proportions and the colors of the actual livery. But I think GeminiJets is off to a hot start because they really did a phenomenal job with the details. So we're just going to go ahead and zoom in, and I'll kind of work off of both of them simultaneously. So we'll kind of zoom in and focus on different aspects as we go. But let's go ahead and start on the bottom here with the Airbus A321neo. So you can see the cockpit windows right there. They look quite nice. Along with that, you have the panel detail and so forth. One of the coolest differences from the 321neo to the A350, in my opinion, is that obviously the 321neo has the raccoon mask. So I think that looks really cool, and it definitely provides a bold outline. There's certainly no problem with the A350 not having such a, of course, macro mode. There's obviously no problem with the A350 not exhibiting that, but, you know, it definitely makes the 321neo really look sleek. So I have been fortunate enough to see both these aircraft. I saw an MSP, this 321neo, docked up at the gate after midnight after flying in on the A350. Not the 100 years, but hey, it happens to the best of us, right? So anyway, here's the A350. Another big observation is the placement of the 100 years on both these aircraft. It is substantially different. So kind of taking a look at this, the 100 years on the A350 is way higher up on the fuselage side than the A321neo. As you can tell, the A321neo is substantially farther down. So that definitely is a big observation. It also appears that the size of the logo, the 100 years logo, is also the same. So that's presumably why the A321neos is much lower, relatively speaking, because the size is the same. It just can't stretch across the entire fuselage. Personally, I think that works out pretty good because, as you can see, the stripe, which is also the, you know, a very large size, you know, proportionally they're about the same size, just obviously to the fuselage. That starts here. So their options were to make this smaller and raise this up, or to put it down and make this larger. And I think this was the right choice. You know, you definitely want to keep them pretty proportional. So I think the graphic designs team did a really good job on that. So those are some big differences. But obviously, molds are pretty good. We know about the Gemini A350. It's solid. The A321neo as well, definitely. Really good effort here for the most part. Obviously, just what we became accustomed to is, you know, you can't oversee that, but you know, they're solid. You know, delivery really takes, you know, the momentum, and you can really see it really good. Now let's take a look at the middle portion of the fuselages here. Now, proportionally, once again, the A350, of course, by size is going to be much bigger, but proportionally they end up being about the same. What I do really want to note is the placement. Obviously, the A350 wing's like 3 times as big as the A321neo. So you can see the gray here actually starts before, whereas after is where it starts in the A350. So you can see that cheat line actually finishes up right as the wing finishes, and then here this actually goes over. So that was to be expected, but proportionally really does show how large the A321neo is. And there's a good look at the Airbus A350s. So again, very good detail throughout. And then also note that Shotcut. I'll pull in the models here so you can kind of see it a little bit better, but the A350, of course, you have a slightly different angle on the widget there, and that's just simply due to the size. You know, you don't want to not utilize that space. So there's what it looks like on the A350, and then the A321neo is down here. So proportionally, they look like what they normally would. So that looks really nice, and I think that the details on here turned out really good. So there's kind of a high-level overview of those. As we continue throughout, we really get to the last major section here, which is this tail area to take a look at with the actual liveries themselves. Once again, very similar story. However, this is a little bit more proportionally close compared to the first two aspects we discussed. So you can really see that that gray, they actually are congruent. So this one starts after US flag and raises up. Same for the A350, it starts after and raises up. And then you have the really beautiful blue. I love that shade of blue. The gray, blue, and navy, I think goes so well together. You know, initially it's not a color palette you would think of, but I think that came together very well. So you can see that there, and then obviously you have the tail with the gray to represent, obviously that's the big bold, you know, piece of the puzzle here for Delta, celebrating that piece. You know, they had a gray livery for quite some time. It was a very long period of time, so definitely want to represent that. And there's a high level overview of the A350 right behind it, looking quite nice. So absolutely stunning and just beautiful in general. And I'll give you all some looks at the actual aircrafts themselves, you know, a little bit closer up here. So let's start with the A321neo. Let me get this camera adjusted, of course, so you all can get a better view of kind of what we're looking at and the focus. And there's the Delta A321neo. Looks very nice. And here's the top and the bottom as well. Also another really cool piece, both these, the gray Delta underbelly, I think so. Really cool piece, a very cool attribute to the livery. And here is the right side of the aircraft, which looks just quite nice as well. And now let's go ahead and take a look here at the Airbus A350, which I think is phenomenal as well. Let me get a good angle so you all can see it a little bit better. So here's the Delta A350. Looks super nice. They did a very good job. Of course, only major difference from the sides, there's no like actual livery differences from side to side, just the cargo door you can find there on the front and back of both aircraft. So looking quite nice. And of course, we'll take a look at the top and that Delta underbelly as promised on the bottom. Obviously, much more visible on the A350, but that is to be expected. So yeah, I really hope all of you enjoyed this. These are two phenomenal models, and really all the versions are really good, to be honest. I will say that I am going to do my best to get them, but I'm not going to promise it, considering that it's going to be a very large investment to accomplish that goal. It is kind of more of a fantasy right now, but I'm halfway there, so I'm just tempted to buy them up, and then, you know, we'll see what I choose to do in the long term if that were to happen. And then Aviation 400 also made the A350, so yeah, it's pretty tempting. I do also have, as a little celebration, I don't have any of the trading cards yet or any of that, so I hope to get some of those soon, but I do have a very good condition napkin right here that has the 100-year sticker on it, so that's a start. So hopefully we'll be able to build off that soon, so didn't want to highlight that. But anyway, I hope all of you enjoyed this very much. Super excited for Delta's future, and this is definitely a very adequate, cool, and fun celebration at the very least. So with that being said, that'll do it for today's video, everybody. Thank you all so much for watching. Take it easy, everybody. Stay safe, trust the process. Do you love and love you do. My name's CM Aviation. I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all soon as CM Aviation is signing off.